There we go. It's so quick, too. Alright, starting our audio. I have to look up the notes quick on my phone, because we need the title and all that crazy stuff.
The name of the brother.
Yeah.
And it was Speedstar. Didn't you fight? Wasn't Speedstar someone you fought in the video games? I live. No, it's Sinstar.
Lone Star, I think.
Sinstar.
Fuck, it's the Sin Star, that's right, yeah. Some sort of race. Rate the race for some platform classic theories. Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is season 1, episode what?
What was episode 6 or 7? 7? 8?
Okay. Really? It doesn't say? What the deuce? Episode 8. Next time I'm going to make sure I have internet while we're doing this. Alright, ready?
I think so.
Ready.
Hey folks, welcome back to this episode of the GalaxyCast as we review Season 1, Episode 8 of Star Wars Resistance, titled The Platform Classic. So, there's a race.
Finally.
And that's the episode. Good, we're good. Well, I find it funny that last episode that we recorded, we complained, at least when we recorded about Resistance, we complained there was nothing about races. Here we are on this platform, supposedly it's all about racing, and yet we have yet to have an actual race on the platform. We saw part of a race in one of the episodes early on. We've met some racers, never actually had a race. Like I said, I kind of felt like this was a Star Wars Episode 1 that was missing the pod racing.
Yes.
And so we finally get a race. And this one's made a little more interesting because it's not just a race. It's a race between two brothers. Between Doza and his brother, or Jaeger, excuse me, and his brother who is Speedstar. Right?
Speedstar.
And we don't really know his real name, right? I'm assuming Speedstar is some sort of special name that he made.
Yeah, because at one point, the green assistant there,
Kazuto.
I want to say Kazuto says something, and they're like, "You thought that Speedstar was his real name, you know?" And it's clearly a nom de plume or whatever he takes as in his racing. It's an act name that he puts on for racing.
Yeah, his full name is Marcus Speedstar, but it's pretty obvious that that's
not Speedstar.
Not Speedstar.
It's Marcus, whatever Jaeger's last name is.
Right.
Brothers, but. And you find out that when they arrive, Jaeger doesn't like him. Hasn't spoken to him in 10 years. Apparently he has a big issue with him. Thinks he's selfish and only wants to win for himself and cares about fame and fortune and nothing else.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help but think that Speedstar is who's Jeff Gordon, right? Who's the one that had the kind of the attitude chip on his shoulder in NASCAR, Gary?
Yeah.
That's kind of the or maybe depending on what kind of a fan you are, either that or you see him as Tony Stewart, right? He was the other one who always had a chip on his shoulder about racing. So it's kind of like he has this mentality or chip on his shoulder that he's like the best thing since sliced bread when it comes to racing. But you get this impression that Jaeger could beat him with his eyes closed at this point, you know, and so. It's interesting that Doza calls him up to the office to talk to him, and yet it seems like our main character, who's our main character? Oh my gosh.
This is how much they stick in your head.
Kazan.
And he's not on the list, so I don't remember.
Okay.
Hang on.
See, the problem is
Kaz, thank
Kaz.
you. Our main character, Kaz.
I kept wanting to say Ezra. I'm like, no, that's
No, it's not
Reddit.
Ezra.
So I said
Kaz.
Kazam.
So our main character, Kaz, seemed to know before they even went up there that Doza was going to ask him to race his brother. Am I wrong? Like, I got the impression...
Well,
like,
he didn't
did
know
know
they
they
were
were
brothers.
But he knew that he was going to ask him to race.
No, he knew that one of the best racers in the galaxy was coming,
Okay.
and he thought, I think, that it would inspire him
To actually race.
to race him to prove
Okay.
he's better. I think that he didn't realize they were related. He just thought, oh, this guy's coming. He's a top-notch racer.
So do you think, like, maybe it got around the platform that this guy was coming,
Yeah.
and this speed star was coming to race?
Yeah, there was rumors.
Like a rumors and vibes that something was going on. You know, it's funny that Kaz is all this like happy little go-lucky kid right up until he realizes that there's some sort of weird family connection here that doesn't work out in his favor, I guess. I thought it was interesting that Yeager outright refused right up front to
Yep.
even get involved in a race at all.
Yep.
You know, I think that helped us with that persona that Yeager has, that he's just, that's not what he's into. He's not into racing anymore. And finally, the realization comes that he needs to get into the race because he doesn't want his brother to be shoving him around. And
Well, the brother comes to visit them while they're working in the garage, and
Right.
he and his brother go off to talk alone. And again, they kind of and this was my biggest problem with the episode was they really repeated the theme all the way through the episode.
right,
Like they hammered it home. I'm here to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. You're only thinking about yourself, fame, and fortune. Yeah, I used to. That's not me anymore.
right.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. They like kept playing those basic themes.
Well, and they
over
kept
over
coming
again.
back to the story about Yeager's family. They didn't get to what the
Yeah.
story was, but they kept kind of like circling the water hole on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one. And then eventually they get to, well, you find out that
Well, the first thing you find out when Kaz is talking to him is that Speed Star cheated.
right,
He had used
some sort of
fuel
special
additive
formula,
that he
yeah,
wasn't supposed to. He couldn't control the ship. And he crashed. And when he crashed, he crashed into his brother's ship.
shit, right.
So obviously there's something going on there. And then it becomes even clearer.
That later on he reveals that he killed Yeager's family in the crash somehow, and that,
Somehow. Now I'm trying to figure out how.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Unless
how
they
to,
were
like,
unless they were watching from a platform and it was
I was
right
wondering if
the
they
race.
crashed into the platform,
Yeah.
like Yeager crashed into the platform and he killed his own family by accident.
Something.
You know, that would be terrible to have your own racer go into your family, and that would be pretty devastating. I could see where that would tick me off to the
Yeah.
point that I wouldn't want to talk to my brother. Absolutely. You know, and I thought it was
I mean, there was that one part in the episode where he was cleaning the windshield, and he's like, "Yeah, this is where I washed off part of my wife." And I thought,
right,
that,
like
that was a little too far.
right.
But-
Yeah, you're crazy. I did think it was kind of weird though that at the end he was really quick to like pull off of the race and let his brother win. I was
Well,
like,
first of all, he was quick to get into the race. He said,
Right.
like, no, 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 no.
and then he was like, "Yes, I'm in."
All it took was a little bit of Kaz and the assistant lady there, who I can't think of her name either,
Yeah,
egging him on a little bit about, well, I guess your brother's better than you. And that's all it took for him to go storming off and find his brother and say, okay, I'll challenge him. I'll prove to you. You know,
Yeah.
this is all he'll back down. I did think that was an okay cover, saying he didn't really think he was going to race him. He was convinced his brother would back out.
right.
So he goes off looking for his brother. In the meantime, we find that his brother has done some shady dealings and owes some people money who have shown up on the platform, which I find it interesting that they're allowed to walk around with their rifles. Just right into the
yeah.
bar, and no
The
security's coming up to
Guavians you're
stop
talking
them.
about, yeah.
No security's stopping them. No one's confiscating their weapons. You know, they just go right up and they take someone hostage.
Right.
You
I
know,
thought that
from
was
the bar.
weird too, right?
But I guess the place is kind of rough and tumble place. I don't know. Maybe it happens all the time. And so we find out that he needs to win this race to get the money to pay off and save this guy, just as his brother Yeager shows up and then challenges him, and he doesn't back down because he can't.
What do you guys think of that subplot line though? That he has to save Oplok in order to, you know, he has to win the race to save Oplok from the Guavians. Did you like the way they?
I felt it was fine. I mean, they needed it. It couldn't be something like he just owed him money,
Right.
or it couldn't be they're holding someone he cares about that we haven't met. It had to happen right in front of us, I guess,
Right.
to kind of make it immediate stakes. But it also, by happening right in front of us that quick, felt heavy-handed. And that's kind of what I felt about this whole episode. It was basically a heavy-handed brothers fighting, heavy-handed, all you want is fame, heavy-handed, now I gotta save my best friend, my friend, who might be killed if I don't win the money. It just all felt like it could have been... This is something that I felt should have been told over 2 episodes.
Right.
A setup with the brothers, the guy being stolen at the end,
Mhm.
like kidnapped at the end, and the second episode leading to the race. and the reveal happening later that he's got to win the race.
Yeah.
Because of the thing. It was told too quickly.
And you could have generated angst over it too. Or if you were going to do it in a half hour, then Oblak had already been taken by the Guavians. Or maybe that happened right at the beginning.
Right.
And then we go into the episode.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with you. It just felt forced.
Everything felt rushed.
Gary, what did you think of that side story of Oblak being?
The whole brother against brother race there didn't need to happen, in my opinion.
Right.
There's enough racers on this platform that they should have done it with that.
I get it.
Instead of bringing in...
Felt like a forced story.
Yes. Okay, here's your race. Now we're going to go back to this other crap.
And it's not even someone who wronged you. It's your brother. So let's introduce your family.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what about the guy dressed as a stormtrooper? What about the other racers that we're not hearing about? What the heck happened to what's his name?
The red racer.
No, Hype Phazon.
Or Hype Phazon.
What's he even doing? I didn't even see him in the episode.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He was racing, but he was.
He was way in the back.
Yeah, but
he's supposed to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like, okay, we got like what, 6, 7 racers here on this platform.
Yeah, we focused on 3.
No, not only that, but you brought in a complete
new character
that we're never going to see again.
Yeah.
If we do, it's going to be like one of those 2.5 seasons later, maybe payoff.
I thought it was interesting that they emphasized Griff Halloran, which is the guy with the TIE pilot helmet.
Yeah, he was the one we saw.
He seemed to be
the
a
most.
big deal, and yet I feel like we've had no backstory on him, no information on him.
Have we even heard him talk?
No.
And I know there's an actor who plays his voice.
Yes.
But we've not even heard the guy talk.
Yeah. Steven Stanton voices him, but I don't think we've really heard Steven Stanton talk.
Unless they were talking that one sequence with Hype when they got into the lounge and the people were sitting
And then
around.
maybe he
may
might
have
have
said a
talked there.
couple lines or
Yeah.
a few words,
But
he's not had any character development.
Right. I don't get it. And we were supposed to be, I think we're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, he's, hurting people and taking them out of the race, but I didn't feel that angst at all because who is this guy? We don't seem to care about him.
It was like a Star Wars Mario Kart.
I was about to say the same thing actually.
I just got the
Well, and they kept having to explain all the different phases. The fact that we finished phase 1 where we go around the platform. Now we're gonna go up in space, and now we're gonna fall from space. Phase 3, it's just kind of like I don't know. It felt forced the way they were trying to explain every phase of the race. It just felt awkward. And I mean, I liked the phases. Don't get me wrong, but did you really need to? Instead, at the beginning, you could have said phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1, you go around the rings.
I think that's something that
could
have been tied into a 2-episode story where they could have tied it in a bit, like say there's a scene where they're working on the ship preparing.
Right.
He's agreed. Yeager's agreed to be in the race, and the mechanics are helping him get his ship ready. And he's like, "You got to make sure the engine ignition is blah."
Right.
Why? Because of phase 3.
Right.
What's phase 3? Well, that's when they cut our engines.
Right.
Cut away to a commercial break, and whatever. You played it up and you build up. You needed to build up more anticipation for this apparently gigantic race, and the fact that Yeager was finally gonna race after all this time.
Right.
And they didn't. It just happened. He's in it. There's the race. There's the brother, and it all was jammed into a half-hour episode.
I agree. The other thing that was kind of awkward about this whole thing was what? Chewie, get out of the corner.
He's eating something.
Get out of the corner. Chewie,
Hanging from his mouth.
go upstairs. Go. Sorry, folks. That's my dog in YouTube land.
Yeah, we'll let that out the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was really awkward that all of a sudden Yeager had this ship out of nowhere. Where was this ship this
I think
whole
they've
time?
mentioned the ship before. He's not because early in the first episode.
They mentioned something about him having a ship in the hangar or something.
Because he wasn't allowed to use it when he did his race.
Oh, yeah,
Kaz couldn't use it. He had to get a different ship. So they've mentioned it briefly, or they at least alluded the fact that there's another ship, his good ship or something. But
well, he must have one heck of a hangar that he can hide his ship from everybody and nobody knows it's even there. I mean, I don't know.
He's got a big hangar.
That's what she said.
I honestly think that everybody knows it's there except for Kaz.
Yeah.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Even Doza probably knows it's there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he knows he knows he raced before. He knows he has the ship. That's why he asked him.
What do you think Doza thinks of the ending here, where Yeager pulled off and let his brother win? And
I think he feels
betrayed.
Yeah, a bit. I think.
I'm wondering if that's the case.
He wanted
too.
a local celebrity, someone who
to
could win
be
the race.
like an intergalactic champion.
More, tourism stuff. And I think he's just kind of upset that you blew what I thought you'd win.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess we kind of all, we've talked everything. I mean, the whole show was almost about the race itself.
And that's the other thing is, let me say this. I didn't like the end. I also didn't like how he lost the race. Because he clearly threw it.
Yeah.
Which all that would cause is upset. I think he needed to slow down just enough so the other guy passed through ahead of him.
Right.
But the fact that he pulled off To me it was like too blunt. It's like everyone would go, "Why you just threw the race?"
Right.
But no one seemed to even identify with that, or to recognize it, or to acknowledge it in any way.
Well, because it happens all the time.
Apparently. Apparently, people who haven't raced in 10 years and are about to win just throw a race.
Just throw a race.
And everyone's fine. Everyone's fine.
Everything's okay with it. Yeah. Nobody thinks that he threw it or anything. Yeah. I got to go back to the old NASCAR. Like, oh, there's something wrong. My tires fell off or something. You know what I mean? Like, fake some sort of problem. Like my engine cut out. You didn't even do that.
I'm losing power.
Yeah.
Looks at his brother, winks. Something, and then
something.
Brother passes through.
Just to pull off is like, just wrong. I guess I agree with you on that one, Eric. Okay, I don't know what else we can say about this. I mean, I think it was one of those episodes. So I guess we should rate this one. 0's a don't bother, 10's a must see. Anyone want to go first? Gary, you went first last time, so I don't want to lay it on you. So
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a dead on 5.
Okay.
It did a couple important. I mean, it gave Yeager a bit of a backstory.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of important. I mean, for the character. It did the racing itself visually. Like I always like the visuals of those ships and the shots from the cockpit sometimes and stuff like that. It did a couple things okay,
right.
and it told some story and it added to the characters, but it missed so many marks of ignoring the other racers like we continue to do, and jamming in, as Gary said, a new character that we didn't need, and being ham-fisted with the story instead of kind of maybe letting it breathe. This is one that maybe could have been more dramatic if it did go a little longer, if they put more detail into it. It just was rushed. So it's totally one of those middle-of-the-road episodes where it added to the character a bit, and we finally got to see a race, but they screwed so much up that I gotta go half and half, so I'm giving it a 5.
Okay. I was actually going to give this one a 5 too, like a middle of the line.
52?
52. No, a 5 as well. I give it a 5 because it was a middle of the line episode. It wasn't awful. I didn't fall asleep through it. Gary, I give him credit, did not fall asleep through this episode. So it was not a yawner. But it wasn't like a high peak, high stakes. I needed to see this episode. There was nothing in it that screamed I needed to see it. We finally got to see a race. Thank you, finally. I like the 3 phases. I actually kind of like the concept of the race. You go around the rings, you go way up into space, drop down, you got to get into that ring to get reignited. That's kind of a cool idea.
Those spinning rings in the first portion would be really hard to time.
Right.
I was actually like, that's a kind of impossible obstacle.
Well, I don't know. It still reminds me of that N64 game. What was it, Star Fox?
Oh, yeah.
It was where you had to go through the rings and stuff. It reminded me of that. And there were spinning ones through that, and you had to time those almost the same way. You had to be able to kind of pass through them. So, I mean, I thought the concept of the race was good, but everything around it was kind of like, I agree with Gary, it was kind of lame in the idea that you needed to put the brother in order to make, you didn't need to do any of that. None of that had to happen. And the race could have just happened with the people on the platform, and I'd have been good with it.
Yeah.
You didn't need to create the story from outside of the platform.
But then, so how could you have done the same thing and told a backstory of Yeager without his brother? I think you could have done it by still having the race and having him not race, and in the end he admits why he didn't race.
Right. See, that would, to me would have been, or...
And we spend our time meeting the other characters more.
Or what if Kaz stole the racer and raced with it, and then he explains to Kaz why it was a big deal that he stole the racer and raced...
I
with Yeager's ship.
haven't used that since.
Right, here's why, because there's still my wife's guts on it, or whatever it is, like...
Or they could just have a flashback scene of a race where he crashes into his wife and kids.
Right, he's explaining it to Kaz, and we see it in flashback form, and I'd have been good with that. I agree. So, Gary, what would you give this episode?
3.
3. Wow. 3. So why a 3?
Because everything that I've said before, there's no reason why they had to introduce a new character that we'll probably never see again.
Check mark.
Or talk about.
Yeah.
They didn't use the racers that are already there.
Check.
Which they failed miserably on. They showed the TIE pilot, the guy. That's it.
Right.
He did a shoot at people and crashed out at the end. It would have been better if they went through the ring at the same time and he crashed into the ring or something.
He caught his wing and went spinning and still ejected. Something.
Yeah.
Right. Even if that was with Yeager and his brother, that would have been better too. Instead of just peeling off to the side and just letting the guy win.
Yep.
And nobody says anything about it. Why did you do that for? You could have won the race.
Right.
So, It was a waste of time for me.
Okay, so those are our thoughts on this episode of Star Wars Resistance. We'd love to hear from you. Find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, and let us know what you thought about this episode of Star Wars Resistance.
We've got to be frustrated because they're like, we finally gave you a racing episode.
Right,
you
you
didn't
didn't
like
like
it.
yeah, we are having a hard time with this show. I really do. I
Yeah.
think we are struggling with trying to find something we connect with in the show, and I don't know if it's because it's a kid's show or what the deal is.
And they should be proud of the fact that I stayed awake for this whole episode.
They should be. Yeah, they at least kept you through that.
I'll give it one positive.
Okay.
Kaz cheering and knocking the robot off the platform.
Yes, there was
funny.
that one
Was
moment
funny.
that was very funny.
Yeah, it was
knocking the
pitch
pitch right over.
That was
yeah.
funny. I didn't expect it.
So, those are our thoughts in this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Find us on those social media platforms. And as we like to say here in the Star Production Studios, may the Force be with those who listen.
To Shazam!
Go away!
And Shatterpoints. Okay, let me say that quick. Alright, that's it. Alright, that's it, YouTube land. Glad to have you all back. And hopefully you'll see us more soon. See ya!